I have been handed the torch and I have got to thrive because I have generations underneath me that are watching, and I have really got to show them that you have to have a no failure concept.
When it's your passion, you have to anticipate that people will not be on board to the degree you would expect them to be on board.
Let your ego go. Let it go and just learn. It's a lifelong decision. It's not, I'm going to act, direct, and write. This is a lifelong decision. And you got to learn every single day.
You'd have to know if a person is serious about being successful or if it's a front and they're afraid of success.
It's worth it. Like, the work and the sacrifice is worth it, that I get to say exactly what I want to say all the time. And that is so important to me.
Yeah.
Be able to express myself.
I'm a writer, creator, producer, director, author, and community champion. But that's not how the story started. I faced rejections more times than I could count and found support in the most surprising places. Scrap paper is where I make sense of it all. The scraps, the stories, and the strength behind the journey.
So I'm so excited to be here with you. I tell people all the time the story of our meeting and how where I am today producing and creating content is as a result of our encounter and your worship and your support over the years and just learning from you. So I'm over the moon excited about this particular interview because we get to have a conversation about who you are, how you got into this, and how you've impacted me in my journey. So I'm pumped. So thank you for being here. Kick us off with what inspired you to even get into film and television?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you and thank you for such an opening because you were just a gift. So that was easy. That was easy. When you had that first meeting with that one film, Eyes of the Kings, and you were working for the cast and people and all them people, and we just hit it off. And everybody was talking. It was all men. And then you were sitting there. And I said, "Well, how do you feel? How do you feel?" And then you started talking, and you gave me your honest opinion. And I said, "All right, let's lock in on that." So thank you so much. So it was so easy with you because you're a gift, and a talented person yourself, and very clear-headed and very, very clear-headed. So it was easy. I knew what I wanted to do since I was 5 years old. I knew, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a movie producer and director, everything, actor, everything. But I just had to find my path because nobody in my family was in that business. And we're all immigrants. They were all immigrants. And we lived came in a small town with nothing but steel factories. And when I played Little League, our home run batting position was facing a steel mill in the home run position. And so all the little kids saw nothing but steel mills all around them. And I just knew I didn't want to go there. Now, it was a great job. Don't get me wrong. It was a wonderful job for a lot of people, working families. And it provided a lot of income for a lot of families until they closed down and left them all stranded 30 years later or whatever. But I knew I just didn't want that. And I knew I wanted to be where I was. I wanted to be a movie director. I wanted to be a stage producer. And since I was 5 years old, since I was kindergarten, I still remember. And I kept looking at it, and my mother said, okay. So she took me to see A Raisin in the Sun with Sidney Poitier. And he just blew me away. I said, who is that guy? What is this movie about? This is what I want to do. And I just remember when he broke down and he said, "Mama," and she goes, "In this house, there is still God." And it's like, it was just all these dynamics going on because I could relate to them being an immigrant myself and everything and speaking a different language than English and coming at that time. And at that time, it was a whole big civil rights movement going on. And I just said, that's what I want. I want to be that guy. Now, I didn't want to be an actor. Then I found out who the director was. And I wanted to be the director. I wanted to be the producer. I wanted to be the creator of that. And that's where I think that's the best way to say is that I didn't isolate myself as I want to be an actor. No, like most good actors and say from the beginning they want to be actors. But I wanted to understand actors, but I wanted to create that project. And that's, to me, I think, and then the other project was, another one was Porky and Bess. And that song, Summertime, and it just blew me away. And as a kid, and my mother took me to those things so I could find a path. Now, she didn't know where, no one knew where. And then so I had an an elementary school teacher, Mrs. Showalter, who recognized some talent. And she kept pushing me into these plays. And I was the first sixth grader who was a lead in the eighth grade play, because I think it's because I wanted it. I was singing out loud. I was doing whatever I could do. And she pushed me. And then I realized now she was my first mentor. She was my first person that helped me understand where to go. And then I went to the high school and at first I thought, because I ran around with a tough crowd, growing up in South Chicago at that time. And I was scared or embarrassed to say that I wanted to go into the theater or film to my friends because they were Rough Riders, And so I used to sneak off at night and say, I have a business meeting. I would go to the Goodman Theater classes or acting classes or directing classes. Then I got into high school play, but I never invited anybody because I was too embarrassed because I thought I'd be a sissy. And then I realized, wake up. This is what you want, And then once I did it, the toughest guy I told to, I said, I got accepted here in school, and he goes, I told him, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to be third, and he cried and said, then do it, Frank, do it. Don't be like us, man. Don't hang out here, and that was kind of like a second push.
Yeah.
And mentors are there. And I want to say this to everybody is that when I say mentors, I don't mean mentors that, they're my mentor and God, give me halos and all that. No, they're the ones that helped me get to the next level I needed to get to. And then they let go. Mentors are meant to let go and say, push you and go. You go now. You got it. Go. And I'll be here if you fall down. I'll be here. Ask me any questions if you need help. And that's what mentorship is to me. It's the person that will help you, but it's not the person who's going to hold on to you and say, no, you're doing it the wrong way. I would do it this way. No, yes, a mentor is there to help you, guide you and stuff, but then eventually, like a child, you cut the strings, So I think I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now a brief word from our sponsors.
Every great story needs a director, a guide, someone who helps you define your role and step into it with confidence. That's exactly what Epiphany Resources does. Whether you're a leader, an entrepreneur, or someone searching for direction, Epiphany Resources helps you find your why and equips you to pursue it. They don't just focus on the details, they focus on you. Learn more at epiphanyresourcesllc.com. Behind every rural nonprofit or community-driven business is a powerful story, one that deserves to be heard. Letterpress Communications makes sure it is. Letterpress crafts messaging that inspires action using community-powered marketing strategies that helps change makers like you create an even bigger impact. If you're building something that strengthens your community, Letterpress is here to help amplify your voice. Visit letterpresscommunications.com or connect on Facebook or LinkedIn to get started, because the work you do should never go unnoticed.
And now back to Scrap Paper with Natalie K. Hodge.
As you were sharing about mentorship and just thinking back to us meeting, the time, in my life when we met, I had discovered that acting wasn't the path for me. And I knew that film and television was, but I had no idea.
Right.
What else there was.
Right.
So I was just exploring in New York with, meeting a cast of characters along the way who, oftentimes people will present that they know certain things about the business, or they have, certain connections or whatever that is. And being a trusting person, I'm just, you tell me something and I feel like, why would you lie? Being in that space of like not knowing who to trust in the business, not knowing who was for real. And then also on the other side of that coin, there being this distrust of new people. So people who are actually doing stuff in the industry, who are connected, you know, they need to kind of vet you before allowing you into the space. So when we met, I was in that really strange kind of part of my journey of figuring it out and then developing a reputation within the business.
Mm-hmm.
So what I loved about how you treated me was, number one, it wasn't about my look. It wasn't about my gender.
It's partly.
Wait a minute now. It was about, you know, what I could offer as a resourceful, smart person.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Is going to jump into any situation and figure it out, and then you pushing me when I said, you know, I have no idea what a script supervisor is. You're like,
right,
well,
right.
Let me teach you how to do that, and then do it. And there wasn't a cushion, there wasn't a safety net. We were on set, and your expectation of me was that I was going to deliver whatever you'd ask, even though I had no idea what was going on. Let's just be
and you delivered, and you did deliver. If you remember, that was a morning on Charlotte Street. We were doing that short for the festivals and stuff, and then I remembered through the long hour. It was a whole weekend shoot, and one day we're at our 14th hour, and everybody's I can see, I sense everybody, you know, that draining of the day coming through you, and then I kind of got lost in where I was in orientation wise, like where were we in this setup and the camera position and stuff, and the script. I think it was a script, and then everybody's going, I'm going, no, here, over here. I said, everybody shut up. I said, Natalie, where are we? And you went, okay, Frank, you I went, thank you, and that's all I needed, and that's what I needed. So, and that was in the 14th hour on our third day, I think, you know, and that's what I meant you delivered, because I needed that service, I needed that person there, and that's what's important about everybody's job as a director. I believe as a director that everyone's there to execute the vision I'm trying to execute. Not that it's a dictatorship or tyrannical or anything like that. It's about my vision. That's what I'm hired to do. And no matter who, if you're a cameraman or script supervisor, you're all there to execute my vision. And what I don't like is when people come on and they want to execute their own vision in my team. It's a major collaboration. Your fact that you just did that for me cleared it up for me so I could think again. And that's how you executed my vision, so I could move on to my vision. And every it's a major collaboration. There's no oh, I'm the star, and that's where people get lost. Good or bad, and well known or not well known. And I've worked off many, and there's some major actors I wouldn't refuse to work with again, you know, because what they bring, and they forgot where they came from. And you had this humbleness, and I believe in that. I always say, my mother taught me, never rest on your successes, and always keep growing, keep learning. Don't sit there and say, well, I did this. You know as well as I do, and most of the people listening know that when you do a project, it's about a year and a half of your life. So I gauge my time, how much on earth, how much time I have left, on how many films I can do next, you know. So 2 years, 5 films, 2 years each, that's 10 years of my life. So you want those people around you. You want those people who can execute your vision along with you, and that's the collaboration. But you came along with a lot. Was that your beginning? Was that the first time when I met you, went in that casting office? Was that you were just starting then, or was that where you had some time before?
I was just starting work behind the camera. The only thing
I got you. Right.
Was really background acting and studying acting in a summer intensive. So even my experience within the industry was short. So I quit my job right before the writer's strike happened.
Oh, wow, back then. Yeah.
So it was just a really crazy period of, you know, acting in New York City and in my life journey. So,
and you came a long way, girl. You came a long way. That's a long way. I'm not going to date us, but that was quite a few years back.
That was some years ago.
Yeah.
When you think about your journey, your path, there are a lot of successes there. But talk to me about some of the things that didn't work out that ultimately led to success.
And it's a good question, because I just answered this when I gave a speech at a film festival in Tryon International Film Festival. By the way, not to give a plug out, but the Tryon International Film Festival is a great place for young artists. I mean, when I say young, I mean by new, old, whatever in age, but to submit their works. It's in Tryon, North Carolina. And I just answered this question to them, and it came to me to answer to when I was asked the question then. When I was younger, I wanted to do everything, and I was eager, and I had to slow down. I had to slow down to learn. I had another good mentor of mine was Vincent Gugliotti. He was the casting director for Joseph Papp back in the day, and he's the one who did A Chorus Line, Two Gentlemen of Verona with Raul Julia, and he a very successful man, but very modest and very humble. And I was directing this play, and I thought I was directing anything and I could get my hands on. But I was a young kid, just getting out of school, and they were terrible. They were bad. But I took the honest. I said, no, if we're going to do this, this is our greatest play in the world, And they were terrible. And then one time he came in, and when I met him, I said, okay, Vincent's here, and he came up to me and he goes, boy, you have a lot to learn about directing in front of everybody. And I said, what? I'm thinking this. I didn't say anything. I'm looking at him stunned. And I said, I'm looking at him. He goes, listen, I think you got talent. I think you got a long way. It's a lifelong decision. It's not, I'm going to act, direct, and write. This is a lifelong decision. And you got to learn every single day. He says he was just starting I got at the right time. He was starting at a new theater company called the Forum of Italian American Playwrights. And he said, come to our theater. He says, you're going to see people and you're going to learn the process. You're going to learn the craft. You're going to learn what it takes. I learned in theater before film. And around then was, Al Pacino coming up. It was, these were the older guys. These are the guys I was like walking into, and Donna DiMatteo and Dan Lauria from the Wonder Years, and Dayton Cali from Sons of Anarchy, and Woody Harrelson. We all were together. Woody Harrelson and I and Dayton were all coming up together, and we were all there. And he says, "But don't think you're going to come here directing right away. You're not here to direct. You're here to learn. And if you could take that, then you can join our theater group that I'm trying to put together." And of course, learn how to be humble, because my ego was going like it's a young kid, ambitious young kid, going, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'll do that. And when I accepted that, and I would learn, he taught me how to be humble in a crowd. He taught me how to be humble as a person, and not to like let people walk over you. I don't mean that kind of humbleness, but I mean humble in the work and learn. Let your ego go, let it go, and just learn. And then a year and a half later, I'm working, but I was doing readings. I was setting up readings for the actors, the process of reading the script for the director to hear, or the casting director, whatever. And I was cleaning the floors. I was getting coffee. I was the first one in, last person to leave the theater at night at 17 hours. And then finally he came in the springtime. They had a spring workshop, and he goes, here, you want to direct this play? I went, yes. And then I said, wait. I'm thinking to myself, wait, I didn't even read it yet. I said, Vinny, I haven't read it yet. I don't know. He goes, don't worry. If you fail, you have a family now. You have a theater family. So we'll help you. So that was one of the best learning process. And then when I jumped into film, and I went through horror films and stuff, and then when I got to a major break, it was the Ghostbusters 2. And I was an AD, assistant director AD, and I was new. I was young, new. And that was kind of a step up. I'm passing a couple of years in the film, of the horror film genre. And the ladies, a location manager who's a big producer now, and she said, I was working out with her in her department. She said, "Can you go get location pictures for me for tomorrow's shoot?" And I knew how to do it. I knew, because I did it on all these other low budget films. I was taught how to do how to frame your location shot, side by side, so you could show the actors, the directors, the producers, the spot, and so they could choose a location. But she said one thing to me, and I wasn't listening. She said, make sure they're really lined up, like really close together. So this is back when we had Kodaks. We still had Kodak film. So
Oh.
I said, wait a minute, I know this way, shooting it this way, like this, but she's telling me doing it this way. So I took the locations, got shots, strip by strip. It was like strip by strip by strip by strip by strip. And I went through 8 rolls of film. And she goes, how many? I said, yeah, they filmed. She goes, wow, that's good. And then she saw it all. She goes, what is this mess? Because it was all little strips of that. And I'm going like, but you said strips, because I wasn't listening. And I was in the big league. I was coming up in the big leagues then. That's Ghostbusters 2, was where all the majors are. Right. And they in the
Bobby
office.
Brown.
Yes. They were all, yes, exactly right. They were all little cue of me, and I felt like about that small. And everybody was like, oh, that kid didn't know what he's doing. My God, how can you mess something up? And then the producer comes out and says, well, that's what you get for hiring somebody you don't know, that kind of stuff. And it was going through me. It was going through me. And I said, okay, I'm going to learn from this. What mistake did I make? And I recognized that mistake. And I said, this is the mistake I made. This is never, ever going to happen to me again regarding situations like this. And time goes by, I'm working on another shoot. Boom. Frank, can you go out and get a location shot for us? Yeah. And I learned from that. And I'm learning. I put it together right. Then when I did it right, everybody the next time, everybody's going, oh man, good job, Frank. Oh yeah, great job, Frank. Great job. So you have to learn from that mistakes. Don't sit there and wallow. And yes, you're gonna feel the emotionally personal. In our business, it's all emotions. We live with our emotions on our sleeves. And it's very, very personal. But then you have to get by that. Then that's part of being humble as well. That's where your craft comes in, your technique. You say, okay, what did I do that wasn't supposed to be there? And you learn from that. And that's the biggest thing that carries me even to this day. If I mess up today, I'll say, okay, what don't I know? This person asked me a question and I'm supposed to be the master of this and I don't have the answer. And that goes into my theory on set. When I'm on set and I'm working on a script, if somebody on that set knows that script better than me, then I'm in trouble. It's my fault. I'm not one of those people that say, okay, I have a director of photography and a good editor. Okay, you do it. You just do it, do it. No, I'm that person that's going to know that. I'm going to tell them what I want, and their job is to help me execute that. And they'll give good ideas and say, well, don't do it this way. Let's do it this way. And I'll go, oh, wow, yeah, it's so much better. And that's their job. But we're all learning every day. And I'm working on scripts now, and I know when it's ready because it starts talking back to you. You have to learn how to listen. And you are very good at that, by the way. You're a very good listener. And that's one thing I admire about you. And I said, one of my things when I got on this show with you today, I said, I have to listen to her because she's listening, So, but no, it's that whole, when you listen to your script, when you learn how to listen to the script, after many, many drafts, of course, the script will tell you where it wants to go. Most people don't listen to that. You have to listen and say, oh, I'm trying to force it this way, but the script is saying, open it up this way. Get rid of that scene. And it's telling you, eventually the script will tell you what it wants it to do. And you have to learn how to listen to it. But I think that's the learning curve. It's about learning. And it's painful because everybody they were like making fun of me. And I thought, and they would have kicked me out. They would have kicked me out with a boot. Everyone took a turn of kicking me, like in a boot, like, But I learned from that. I said, okay, I messed up. It was my fault. I was not listening to her. I had an idea of how to do it, but I thought she wanted something else because I didn't take the time to ask her, oh, do you mean this or do you mean this? A simple question.
Right.
But I was so ambitious and so young, and I said, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll go out and do it. I know what she said. I know what she wants. And then I had to slow down and listen. And that's communication is part of what we do, so.
And now a brief word from our sponsors.
At Tad Tavern, the lights dim, the mic turns on, and creativity takes center stage. As proud sponsors of Scrap Paper, Tad Tavern believes in giving bold voices a space to be heard, surrounded by delicious food, good vibes, and unforgettable experiences. Whether you're there for the show or the stuffed shrimp, you're in the right place. Visit tadtavern.com to reserve your seat at the table where food meets inspiration. Scrap Paper is all about exploring ideas and pushing boundaries, and so is our sponsor, Epiphany Resources. Success isn't just about knowing what to do, it's about having the clarity and resilience to do it. Epiphany Resources helps leaders and business owners break through the obstacles and grow into their full potential through coaching, mentoring, and speaking. If you're ready to take the next step, visit epiphanyresourcesllc.com.
And now back to Scrap Paper with Natalie K. Hodge.
So being humble, listening, those were some early lessons that you learned. Talk to me about a lesson that you've learned in this season of your journey.
Oh, that I want more, you know, I want more, you know, I want to keep going, you know, I'm at a point where I believe in giving back. I really believe in giving back. And again, my family is always about giving back, you know, but you can't give back unless you have it. Sincerely, truly, not like, oh, I'm gonna give you advice, I'm gonna give you a street address because you don't know the street. I mean, I'm something that they need, and I'm recognizing what I like now, where I'm at now is I've been giving a lot of lectures and teaching, and also young filmmakers. I love talking to them, but they have to want it. I don't want to be around young filmmakers that say, oh, no, I do this, I'll do it, I know how to do it. No. Okay, go do it. Why are you asking me? Go find your own path. Of course, I'm sure you'll do it. But I want people who want it, who want to learn. And then I believe in giving back. I think that's the point in my life now is, as I like giving back, but at the same time, for me personally, I have a few projects I'm working on. I want to keep doing it. Someone asked me that the other day, like, I know, and I was in Florida. I had to give a big speech and stuff, and they said, well, what is it that keeps you going? And I said, the work. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's not what I want to be. I do it because that's who I am. That's my voice. That's who I am. You know me as this all your life. You didn't know me from before. You knew me now. And I grew just as much as you grew in that time span that we had together. And I'm always constantly growing. Then when you hired me to do that Kelly's Corner, and you said no. I remember the story you told. I forgot the producer, the other guy. Yes, I forgot. Yeah, and he you go, no, we got to talk to Frank. If Frank's available, let's try and get Frank. So I said, okay, that's my responsibility to Natalie. And I thought we did it. We had a great rapport on that. We did. Yeah, we really did. And I wanted to do that. I want to give it back to, and I want to keep growing as an artist, because a friend of mine asked me one time. He's a great friend, and he said, and we're watching a great musician in New Orleans, and he goes, oh, he's playing that music because he loves it, and he's an older guy. He was a well-known musician, and I thought about it for a minute, and I said to him, I said, Michael, if we were back in college, I would have said you're right. He does it because he loves it. I said, but now that I know the business, he's doing it because that's who he is. It's who he is. And that's what gives him his voice. That's what gives him his presence, his life. And I feel the same way. It's who I am. And I can't do anything else. Not that I'm not interested in anything else. If I didn't have this in my life, I would be a chef. That's my second passion. I love to.
I've never tasted any of your dishes, Frank. I feel
you got to come to my barbecues, girl. Because I have a backyard in Manhattan, and in the summertime I have some pretty good little barbecues. So, but yeah, that's my second passion.
Game on. My next question was actually about if you had any side projects or hustles that kind of got you through until you were able to do this as a full-time endeavor. What did you do on the side?
As outside of this work?
Mm-hmm.
Really, since I got out of school, I was lucky. I was at NYU Films. I went to the theater program, and then I was at the Goodman Theater in Chicago, and that's where I learned. I used to sneak away, and I got an undergrad at Goodman Theater, which was one of the best at that time elite directing schools. It was the only one in the country, and it's a well-known school to this day. And there were actors there. There were the production designers there. There was all kinds of people. You all had to direct, and you graduated as a director. And so that was eye-opening. And then they told me to go to American Academy. So in my journey, they put me somewhere else, and I came to New York, and I was lucky because I ended up at the NYU Film School, grad school. And when I got out, I hit these investors who wanted to make horror films. Now everybody else, and that's one thing we have to talk about, I think, is that institutions should teach kids what's real in the world out there. Because I was at NYU Film School. Thank God I was under scholarship, and because I would have been mad if I had to pay all of it, you know. But for 4 years, 3 years, you're there as a director. You're learning technique, but you think you're a director. You're a director. And when you get out, the real world, when you graduate, it's like, now what? Then you have to learn from the bottom up again. You have to learn to get coffee. You have to learn to be a PA. You have to learn how to do it again and find your niche in that world. And I was lucky because when I got out, these investors wanted to do horror films, and they had $100,000. And we did it back then. I did some, and some of them are classic now. Some of them are in the Horror Hall of Fame and shit like that. But it's like I didn't mean to use that word, but so I was lucky. But they made millions. But I was doing my thing, and I was smart about it because I said, if I'm going to hire, I don't know people. I'm just getting out into the world. I hired real grips, real electrics, real sound men, real sound editors, he or she, and I paid them their rate, without benefits, of course, and they were top. They were top people in the business who needed work for a day or 2 weeks or whatever. And so I was learning from them, and they're the ones, believe it or not, who recommended me to Ghostbusters 2 years later. One of the guys recommended me for that, and that's how I got that job and got me into the Directors Guild and all that. And then, but it's a learning. It's that whole process. And then when I got to the next level, I had to learn that level. And each level, and I started off as a PA, production assistant. I started off as an AD. I went from second AD to first AD. Then I said, this is not really what I want to be. Then I went to line producer, production manager, then producing. And those are years in that time frame. But I learned every single department. I know what each department does, and that carries me into now, and that carries me into what I'm doing now. I mean, all that journey came up to me learning to what I want to do, and have confidence in what I want to do, you know, and believe in what I'm doing. So I think if that answers your question.
Who or what keeps it together for you now? Keeps you sane? You do. That's the right answer, Frank.
Of course, it's people like you. It's people like you. It's people who it's very important. And I sincerely mean this, and I mean that in a good way, is I'm the type of person that I believe that I know I'm going to fall in the trench when I'm out there on set. I know at some point, or pre-production in the office, or whatever, I'm going to end up in that trench one day. And in the real world of our business, it's a tough business. There'll be about 9 out of 10 people standing there watching, laughing, saying, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, look, he fell in the trench. Oh my God, let's just do it ourselves." I want people around me that's going to give me a hand and say, "Here, Frank, let me help you out of that trench. Let me help you." And I'm smart enough to ask for the help, and they'll pull me out, and we'll all, like you did when I said, "No, everybody be quiet. Natalie, where are we?" I was falling in that trench. I was getting lost of where we were because of time and all that, like I explained earlier. And you said, boom, I need people like that around me. And I surround myself with people like that. And my daughter, my wife, Betty Chin, she's a legend in her own world. She does, you think my resume is incredible, you should see her resume. She stayed with the studio and stuff. We both worked at studios, and I eventually broke away from the studio to do my own stuff because I wasn't allowed to do it there. And I had a good position too. Sometimes I would say, wow, why did I leave that salary? You know, so, but it's like, because, you know, but it's, and those two are, you learn to keep close to your friends and your family. You learn to keep close to that because that's all you have in the end. That's all you have. And that's what gives you the joy. And we're all in the business. So it's not like I'm not in a situation where, we don't understand. Like when my daughter was born, I was on location. I flew home when she was born. And then we were lucky in a way that when she was born, one of us was always there because we were always working. One of us was there. It just worked out that way. and where we had a nanny and stuff like that, but still, we were always there. So we're very close to each other, very quiet in that way, in that respect. So I think that's more or less what keeps me going, is that the family and the few friends that I really know that I really have. And I have friends, but I have friends that I really know.
Yeah, there's a different definition.
Big difference. And that gives me joy too.
Friend.
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
Because who would I go to if I needed to vent? Right. You know, it's on a serious matter. You know, that kind of stuff. And my sisters, I have 5 sisters and my brother, and there's like 7 or 8 of us all together. So my sisters are close, but we have a distance all our lives. I've been gone from my house since I was 17. So, but we're very close. But I mean them and family as well. You know.
What advice would you give your younger self?
It's worth it. It's worth it. Take the journey. It's worth it. If you're true to it, if you stay true to what you want. Now, some people in my class, I was with the class when I was at NYU. Spike Lee was there. It's the Coen brothers and John Killick. He's a top, really good producer, and he ended up being Spike's producer throughout his earlier days. And we all knew each other. We all grew together, and my wife did like 4 of Spike's movies, you know, coming up, and as in the production office. And it's that journey. It's that journey that you have with each other. I forgot what was the question. I forgot what was the question.
Tell your younger self.
Oh, it's worth it. Yeah, it's worth it. And that's like, and you take the journey. Don't be afraid to take the journey. You take the journey, and stop being afraid of the boogeyman. You know, there's no boogeyman. You know, and when I say that, I don't mean like, oh, don't be afraid to walk down that dark alley where there's 10 thugs there. And you know they're there, but you're going to walk down there. And yes, be afraid then, and then go the other way. But what I mean by that is we fight ourselves all the time. We stop ourselves. It's easier to stop yourself than it is to get yourself going. And because we have a tendency in the human mind that we want to. It's easier for us to find a dark side to go down to, but in the sparrow right into that darkness, but it's hard to come out and keep that light, you know, keep it for the light. I don't mean like light of, you know, heavenly light. I mean the light for yourself, you know, and it's hard for that. And don't be afraid, because there's going to be time when you're nervous is different than being afraid. Nervous is, well, I still go on set first day at my age, at my time, at my experience. I'm so nervous. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what all the homework that I did. And I believe in doing the homework and being prepared. That's another thing I would tell myself. Always keep doing your homework. And but it's like it's don't be afraid of it, because I still get nervous. But then when I get on set and I walk on that set and someone says, "What do you want to do?" It all comes together. And by the time I get done, it's 7:00 p.m. already. You know, starting at 6 a.m. You know, and so that's that fear that could stop you. You know, and I came here to New York City on my own. I had $40 in my pocket, and I just, you know, because I was being transferred, and I didn't want to come to New York City, and because I was coming out of Chicago, but I was in California for school and stuff like that, and they transferred me here, and I said okay, so I flew from California, went to Chicago. I walked out of Grand Central Station with I looked like a total immigrant with this big old suitcase, with this one suitcase that I'm lugging. I had everything in it. I was not going back. I had everything in it, clothes, I'm clearing the suitcase, and I had $40 in my pocket. And I told the cab driver, take me to the school and the address, and he took me there, and I had nowhere to stay. So I learned that the school I was at had night school. And they had, but it's American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and they had a night school. And I said, okay. And so they were open till 10 p.m. So I will go in as a student. I had my student pass, and I would go and I would wait in one of the class. And then at night, I would snuck in the closet and I slept there. And the school would close down. And then I would get out and I'll be in a room, rehearsal room, and I'll be like laying out. I said, you know, well, this could work. I was smoking cigarettes then, and I said, you know, this could work. And I'm laying out there, and then I heard the janitor. I went, oh my God! And he's in the other room. And as he was pulling his garbage bin, I was taking a step to that closet. And every time he moved, I moved, and I moved, he moved, and I got behind the closet door again. He walked in and he saw the blanket I laid out, and I left a burning cigarette there.
Oh.
And I'm looking through the crack of the door, and I go, oh my God, my cigarette. And he goes, these actors are going to burn down this place one day. And he put it out, because it was an acting school. He put it out, took the blanket, came to the closet door, opened it up wider, and threw a blanket in. I'm tucked away like this, and he shuts the door. I went, oh, I gotta find a place. I gotta find an apartment. You know, this is not gonna work. You know, but it's that you break that fear factor. You know, you have to want it too. You have to, whatever you do in your life, you have to want it. You really have to want it. You know.
100%. So incredible journey, locked in, wanting it, clearly committing yourself to it fully. Now,
yes, that's a very. I just want to tap on what you just said. Committing yourself fully. That's a very important thing, and there's risks, and there's sometimes it just doesn't work. And you and I went through this time where you had a project going, and I'm in a position now where I have to help, get the financing and stuff, and sometimes it just doesn't work. Even though they say, here, we're going to give you the money tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes, it's next week, it's next week. It's that whole thing that's constantly going on with you, but tapping in on, the full commitment. Yes, you learn how to say, okay, that's not working. Let me go to the other project. I have 5-6 projects going on at once. One investor might say, I like project A, but I hate project B. I said, well, then do project A. That's why I have them. So that we have that and fully commitment, and you have to commit yourself, and that's a lifelong. And what I learned back when I was a young man, when I told you I met Vincent, my first major mentor, and he said, it's a lifelong journey. I now understand what he means, because now we're talking years later. But I invested everything into my business, and that business is myself. My business is my business. And it's just like if you run a laundromat, you have to go buy washing machines. I had to go, I have to get people like you around. I have to, I have to get scripts, and then I learned how to write as well. And I would also tell myself, always keep practicing the craft. Learn your craft and love the process. I love the process. That's why I'm not an actor. That's why I never wanted to be an actor. I love creating. I love the process. And I write a script, and I have a co-writer. His name's Rick Martinson. We've been working together for 22 years. And to this day, I would never go on a set without him at my side as a writer, because and he keeps me in reality. We keep each other in reality, and when we're writing, and it's like when I finish the first draft, and I go, here, Rick. He goes, okay, yeah. About 7 months, we could get the second draft out. I go, what? I want to know now. I want to know. You want that approval. You want, oh yes, the best thing I've ever read. But your first draft is the worst. The first draft, I go back and I look at it, I want to throw up. I said, who wrote this? Oh my God. But then you keep working it and keep working it. And you keep pushing that, and you keep working the process. You'll know if there's no story. You eventually will know, but you also will know if there is. And that's what you keep going. And that most scripts I write, worked 2 years in the writing process, and 20 drafts later, it's really ready. And that's where I have 5 scripts now that are like that. They're all ready to go. They're attached to stars and stuff like that. So our actors, well-known actors.
What's the next thing that's popping off, Frank? What you got
for us? Well, I just got back, so I'm trying to get that together. Right now, I hopefully doing a film this spring that I wrote called Moonrider, and a film called Awesome Gal, which is the horse, the trailer of the horse that we shot in West Virginia, a trailer in Virginia. And those 2 projects, Tryon, I want to shoot the Awesome Gal in Tryon. It's about a young girl who, is abused in the Appalachians to the modern day, still abused, no education, kind of like coal miner's daughter versus war horse. She's trapped in her little world. She gets abused by her stepfather. She runs away, and then it's about Tennessee walkers and the soaring process, and what they do to the horses in order to get them to get their high gait, which is a terrible process, which we won't get into at that point. But anyway, the horse is being abused, so the horse escapes his corral, and they find each other, and they have a bond, and they start their own healing process with each other. And the other one, Moonrider, it's about a film director who lost his daughter recently, 18-year-old daughter, in a horse accident, and now he's finally, a year later, back to work. But the film he was hired to do is slowly becoming about his daughter. Oh, wow. So it's how art heals us. It's about how we grieve, and we don't know. Grief is a tough subject. You know, it's a tough personal subject. And I was at not to get into it, but I was at a really tight family member's funeral, and she was young, and someone came up to her father, and I was sitting to him, and he was and said, "Don't worry, you'll see better days. You'll get over it." And I'm thinking to myself, I could kill that kid. I could kill that person for saying that. How can you get over? It was his daughter, by the way, that passed away, and so that's how I got the idea for the story. When I started that story, it was to answer that right. One little thing in real life that happened, and I said, and I came to the conclusion that there's no answer, but at the same time, you're always going to grieve that, and you just have to learn how to do that. You have to learn how to be alone with it. You have to learn, and you still have to continue, but you're never ever going to forget that, especially when they're tight like that. So it's about how art. And then I transferred it, and it grew into how art heals us, and whether it's music, painting, the conversation we're having now, it helps heal somebody somewhere, and that's what that movie's about. And that's going to be shot here. I have signed Dayton Cali, the star of Sons of Anarchy, and Deadwood. He's playing the studio head, who's the guy who says, "Yeah, you're not making this movie." He's the bad guy, And the director doesn't care. He goes, because he's thinking about his daughter. But it takes that process to realize she wants me to care. Yeah. She wants me to move on. So it's that kind of process. So
yeah, I'm so appreciative of you, because this work has been healing for me. It has been such an important creative outlet, and without you as a part of it, I would not have understood the nuances of how to put a project together, how to really hands-on, nitty-gritty produce something.
You had it though. You had it. And I see your post, because you're in Virginia now, and I'm in New York City now again still. And I see your post, and when I see your post, and it's like your new book, or your new person you spoke to, or your new progress and something you're doing, I just look and I go, "Good girl, good for you." So, good for you. Good for you.